Hello, my name's Cal. This is my partner Bill here at Lift and Tow. We've decided we've had a lot of recent calls about getting an install instructions a little bit more clear, so we decided we'd do a video. What we have here is a Chevrolet HD truck that we're going to put a unit on for you. We're going to go through all the process. It's pretty much the same on every other truck. Things are a little bit different here. We're going to do a Z series, so you'll be familiar with the way that it goes up in the frame and the way that you install it. Now we're not going to waste time today showing you how to take the wheels, the tires, and so forth off. But we're going to take the tires off, the rear bumper, and the hitch. Now again, your unit comes on a skid. I'm not going to waste time tearing the skid apart because that's pretty obvious now that comes apart. The thing is that when you take it off the skid and looking at it, spread it out a little bit. If you do have questions, give us a call. It's a toll-free number. We'll be able to help you. So let's get started. Okay, we have the tires off, the bumper off, and the shock off. Now what we need to do, this is an HD truck. We're going to mount this unit up inside the frame because the frame is so wide on these. So what we need to do is go right inside the exhaust mount, right here and here, and here and here. Right, there's a little pad there. Just cut around the inside. We're going to take this whole center section out. So take the Sawzall and just whack that out.
Now I'm going to go ahead and mount the hydraulic power unit. We build a L-shaped bracket out of 3-inch C-channel, and we find a place up inside the frame rail here that doesn't have a whole lot of interference. We can get the hydraulic unit up in here. We stick it up in here, and then we bolt it tight.
Okay, now we have the spare tire mount cut out. Up here and up there. You gotta always be careful there's no wires or hoses in the road when you cut that out. Okay? Now we got the mainframe. What we did, we set it on a transmission jack with a board on it. We set the mainframe up on there and it telescopes, as you can see, it telescopes in and out. So we set it up on the board. These mounts now can be turned left or right or left, depends on where you want to put it at. Typically a lot of installs you'll be setting it up on the outside of the frame like this. With the HD truck, just like it shows on the instructions. But the HD truck, they go up inside the frame. So now we're going to jack this up in place and spread the pads apart. Okay? Okay, we have the main frame mounted up inside the frame of the truck. We put clamps on here to hold it, to get everything lined up. Now the most important thing, and it doesn't matter what kind of truck you mount it on, the most important thing is to get this thing square. Okay? This part telescopes in and out, so we can't measure off it. So what we need to do is we need to go back here, pick a place, and typically the hole that comes down through is a good place. If you put your tape measure on the hole, and bring it back here and pick a place on the end of the frame. And you get a number like there, I got, let's see here once. So there I've got like 31 and a half. And come around the other side and do the exact same thing. You want to make sure that you're really close. Now there I've got 31 and a quarter, okay? So that means that one side's got to come back, the other side's got to come up. A quarter inch isn't a whole lot, but when you get the boom in here and when the boom comes out, a quarter inch makes a lot. So you want to make sure that's as close as you can get it. There's a little bit of movement in the pads, but still try to get as close as you can. So we're going to loosen up one clamp, and then we're going to make sure we square it up, and then we're going to drill some holes. Okay? Okay, now I got the frame marked with a couple of holes where I'm going to drill. I typically use 3 different drill bits, ending up with a 1/2 inch. Okay?
Alright, now that I have my bracket mounted securely to the frame, I'm ready to mount my hydraulic pump. I'm going to stick the pump up on the bracket using 2 3/8 bolts provided to securely fasten to the bracket, and I'm going to route my power wire to the battery.
While he's drilling the holes, a shock mount comes with every unit, so that you have to relocate the shock. Sometimes we have to extend the shock, and it says shock extension. So what I did was stick this up in the top part of the shock. Some trucks, Dodges and Fords, you'll put the mount down here, but as you can see, it fits right into the shock mount. But on a Chevrolet, what we'll do is put that up inside there, take a marker, and we'll mark where the hole is. And what we'll do is go back and drill a 1/2 inch hole in it. We'll set it up in there, and we'll run a bolt through there. Now when we get ready to put the shock on, the shock will go in its original mount, and then the shock will go in here, and they'll extend the shock back so it doesn't hit the mount. Okay, now you can see we got the holes drilled up in there on both sides, and the bolts are provided already with the kit, 1/2 inch bolts. Put them in, tighten them up securely. They have lock nuts on the back. Use plenty of oil, which you can see we need to do with it, save the drill bits. And you can see Bill has the pump hanging up there already with the hoses getting ready to come back. We've got it all leveled up and pretty much ready to go. We're ready to do the rear mounts now.
Alright, now that he has all of the mounting hardware for the back put installed, before we do the back mounting case, we have to make sure we install our valve body with the mainframe. Typically the valve body comes installed with the mainframe already. When you unpack the skid, Everything's marked on it. There's a ground wire that we have to run up and mount to the frame somewhere after we get everything tightened up. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my mounting pads in and go ahead and finish mark hole and drilling.
Okay, now you have the block mounted up on the back part of the mainframe. That's right where it goes at. What we'll do is we'll tighten this nut up later on after we hook up the hoses so that's secure. Got our mounting pads in there. What we want to do, and I forgot to tell you, this hole here, we took a 15 bolt out. We used a 15 socket to take the bolt out. We want to drill that hole to a 1/2 inch because we want to use that hole. And we'll trim off the back of the pad. Hope this is coming out here a little bit. And then we want to mark these holes the same as the bumper holes. Because we're going to drill these holes the same as in the bumper bolts are, and that way we'll be able to use the same bolts again. Same way at the other side. Okay, we slid the mainframe in and out in order to get the pads in. Trimmed off the rear part of the pad. After we have the 3 holes drilled, you can see that I stuck some bolts in there just to make sure that they were going to fit and sized up correctly. The next thing we're going to do, and this is only on the HD trucks, on typically your Dodge Fords and your Chevrolets, it's not HD, you're going to be changing things. The rear bumper mounts on different ways. On your HD trucks, this mount, if you pay particular attention here, what needs to be done is this part right here that curves up here, we need to trim this off and trim this back here. Because what happens, and not only that, but when we trim that off, then also this nut right here, we have to take that's only spot welded on. We're going to take an air chisel, we're going to knock that off because it's already a 1/2 inch hole you can see on the side there. But if you don't trim the top part off, when it goes back over the mount there, see that your bumper is going between your mount and your frame. So you need to have that trimmed off so that that curve doesn't go up there and interfere with your mount. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, as you can see, we trimmed that piece off. And we also took the nut off, and you can see the size of the hole there, so we'll be able to use a 1/2 inch bolt that's provided. Be able to use the same bumper brackets, the same holes, the same bumper mounts that we used before. Okay? Okay, the frame's mounted up in there. You can see the bolts are up in there. We use the same bolts. We got all the plugged back in. We have the block hanging there. Our next step is to put the red up and down cylinder on, okay? And we always put the up and down cylinder on with the threaded end towards the bottom. And he's going to show you here. You just set it up in there, put the pin in, thread it end down so that that's the way it goes down to the boom, okay? Next step then is to hook the hoses up. We get 3 sets of 2 hoses, and they're all marked, as you can see right there, the tray, the up and down cylinder, and so forth. We'll cut the tags off, and then we're going to run 2 of the hoses that says from the cylinder to the block. They'll go on those 2 mounts on the cylinder, and they'll come through the hole in the frame, and they'll mount up to this block right here. Let me get a little bit of light, maybe it'll help you out here. That block has 6 ports on it, and your hoses will go right from the cylinder, right through the hole here, right over, and you'll see after a while that we'll have them hooked up there, okay? Okay, while he's putting the hoses on, your unit will come with a tray. That's what the track will ride in. There's pre-drilled holes in the mainframe. Also in the back there's fittings that are already in it so that we can hook the hoses up. The hoses will go from there up over the mainframe and down to the block. And that'll be for the track to run the arms on the T-bar. Also, when you put these hoses on, don't tighten these up. Don't tighten those up. Put them in and get them on there, because what's going to happen, you're going to get ready and you're going to put them on the block. Let me get my light here so we can see what we've got going on here. Whenever you turn these have to be turned the correct way. When you put them up over and you attach them here, start them on your block, and then these will turn so that they'll set in there correctly. Now you can go ahead and tighten those up. Same way with the cylinder. When you put the cylinder on, don't tighten these 2 fittings up. Go ahead and run those up to the block, and the block is marked up, down, in, out, and so forth. When you put them, leave this cylinder loose, and you put them on there, and then you can tighten them up on the block. Then after you run the cylinder up and down a couple times here, you move it with your hand, and then you can snug those hoses up. That way they'll stay in place. We're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, we got the couple hoses there, the one from the tray over, and we got it routed up, around, and over and tightened up. We got the cylinder now. We pushed the cylinder up a little bit, and we tightened them hoses up so that they would all swing through there real nice. Tied the cylinder up so it's out of the way right now. We don't need to worry about it. The other thing I did forget to mention a while ago, before we're going to be drilling holes up in these holes right here on all 4 corners in order to be able to keep the mainframe centered so it doesn't move. So what we need to do is take a bar and go right there on that edge
right there on that edge, and we need to slide it back and forward so that we make sure we got it centered in the truck so that it's centered, same as it was square. Now we take the two hoses that we routed back. We're going to tie those up. We routed those two hoses back from the pump, and you'll see there that's marked P and T. And what we'll do there is we'll take those two hoses. As soon as I get a light here, I'm trying to do this the best I can, and we're going to run these two hoses up into these two holes right here and secure them. Then we're going to go ahead and tie them up under the truck. So I'm hoping I'm getting through to this thing all right. Also, when you get your Z series, it comes with a remote, which is the remote control. You'll be getting a box. This is a box, and then the remote that you operate it with. And what this will do is you'll cut this tie wrap, and then this will plug right into this, and then this will be mounted up underneath on the bed frame somewhere. It'll mount. We'll show you that after a while. The job that I most dislike about the installation, we're going to drill the holes up through them. We need to drill 1/2-inch holes up through the corners to keep the unit from sliding back and forward. And that's what these pre-drilled holes are for in the mainframe. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, and we got all 4 bolts in and tightened up. We're going to set the track in the tray. We have to turn the hoses a little bit in order to turn them around and hold on to these 2 bulkheads. Okay, now we're ready to set the boom up in place. Remember again, put the hoses on. We're going to fish them through this little hole up here in the side of the mainframe, but don't tighten them. Leave them loose so that we can turn them when we get ready to put them on the side of the block up there. Okay, we got the boom up in place. We jack it up in place. I usually take the pin and smear it with grease. Throw some grease inside the boom there before I do that. I've got the hoses tightened up on the boom. Got them all lined up, and that's what it should look like when you're finished with the block. They should all be tight like that, up out of the road. And then we're going to tighten this bolt right here with a 3/4 inch wrench and tighten that unit up so it don't move anywhere. Okay, we got that pin stuck in there, so we'll run it down. Make sure we fill that cylinder up with fluid, and then we'll run it back up again. We'll get that full fluid out of the way first. That's the important part. Get all the air out of it, okay? Then we're going to come back down. We'll level it off, and then we'll push the out button. Forgot, we got to stick the main pin in there because sometimes when you push the out button, it's got air in it, it'll go in. There we go. Run it the whole way out. Okay. Okay, and what we do, we have to make sure that pump stays full of fluid, because if that pump's not full of fluid, we've got a problem. Okay, and we run it out. Okay, after you get it extended out the whole way, there's 2 grease fittings on the top right here in the front. We want to fill those grease fittings up once it's extended the whole way out. And also in the back of the boom, there's a grease fitting that we put back there, clear back at the back. We want to make sure you grease that once the fittings, or once the boom's the whole way in. So you want to grease that up, pump that full grease there. While he's running that, I want to show you where we mounted the controller at. And again, show you we ran the hoses up and back. Make sure everything's all tight. So it gets a pretty good idea of what's going on here. And it's always a good thing there. Bill's turning the main pin just to turn it around to get grease in all the areas. Now he's going to level the boom up. And then run it back out probably 10 inches or so that we can put the T-bar on it. And then now we'll be able to put the T-bar on there without any trouble. And that's the install pretty much. That's everything up under the truck the way we got to put it on. We're going to take some black paint and paint around some things that we cut off, paint around the pads and the bolts and so forth. And then I'll continue this when we get ready to put the T-bar on. Okay, we set the T-bar onto the boom. That's why we left it stick out a little bit so we can get it on. We set it on, we put the pin down in. We've got the nut that goes on the bottom of the pin. You put the nut on, we don't tighten anything up yet. Make sure you put that on there. And then you take these 2 hoses, and this comes right around and they slide through the end of the boom. Pretty self-explanatory actually. Slide through the end of the boom, and this goes onto this nut here. We put a little grease on the top of this because this is what's going to swivel when the boom moves. And don't tighten this nut really tight, just tighten it up enough. It's got a self-locking nut on it so that that'll keep it from turning. Okay, we're going to do that one.
Alright, now he's assembling the hose track to the T-bar, putting the nut in place on the bolt there.
Okay, now once we have the hose that ran over here and hooked up, we want to run the unit out. We'll run it down a little. What we want to do is we want to be watching for the track. The track will be running in and out, and we want to watch that it doesn't rub on the side there, or it goes in pretty straight. And it's not really cocking over there, okay? And that's rubber, and it's in the road. What you can do is loosen these two fittings back up again, put a wrench, 2 9/16 wrenches on here, and you can twist the hose. And what the hose does, then that'll twist the track back and forth a little bit. Okay? So now we're ready to do some greasing up.
Alright, now we're getting ready to grease. We're going to show you the grease points here on the unit. There's one in the side of the head, in the hole here. You want to fill that up before you tighten the nut on the T-bar. We also have one on the arm in there. The arm has to be shut to get to that one. And there's also one in the arm on this side. If you fold the arm back, you can see the grease fitting inside there. Alright, you know you have enough grease when you see grease coming out between the T-bar plate and on the top of the boom. Okay, as you can see, he's pumping grease in the bushing until we have grease coming out on the bushing.
Okay, if everything was put together correctly and we greased it up really good, that's the way it should operate. Okay. Now we still didn't tighten up the T-bar pin and the other bolt that's down through here. We're going to go ahead, we're going to tighten the T-bar pin up first, and then we're going to tighten up the other bolt.
Okay, as he's tightening the bolt, we're moving the T-bar back and forth to make sure it doesn't get too tight. You want it to be a little snug, but you don't want it to be tight that it won't turn. Now after he has the T-bar pin tight, we're going to tighten the 5/16 bolt. We're only tightening it, just snugging it up, just to pull the cylinders together a little bit.
That concludes our video. We wanted to make it as simple. We didn't want to bore you with everything tearing apart off the skid and sort of things like that. We wanted you to see that anybody can put one of these units on with basic tools. Everything that the shop has around, we didn't have any specialty tools, and that's that.
If you have any questions when you're installing your unit, give us a call at 866-494-6500.